Hi guys! One of the questions I get asked quite often by friends, colleagues, relatives is why did I buy a resale HDB flat instead of a BTO? So today I'm going to finally explain my rationale in detail. I listed out my reasons, so I'm just going to refer to my laptop for this video. Honestly, I can understand why people ask me that question because in Singapore, I feel like the default route is usually BTO. You go to school, apply for a BTO while in university or polytechnic, graduate, get a job, and work for a few years before having a wedding banquet the same year that you collect your BTO keys. It's cheaper, there are some grants, especially when you apply as a student without any income, and we've all heard of those stories of people making huge profits after selling their BTO once it achieves MOP. Before I dive into my reasons for choosing a resale flat over a BTO, let me preface this. I'm not saying resale is better than BTO. I actually think both have their own pros and cons, and which one is better really depends on your own priorities and your stage of life. And also, if you are wondering why I didn't consider EC, which stands for Executive Condominium, well, I'm not rich, okay? I don't have that crazy huge amount needed for the down payment, be it in my CPF or cash. Plus, it defeats the whole purpose of me not wanting to wait years to collect my keys, since if you buy new launch ECs, you still need to wait for it to be built, just like a BTO. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's dive into the reasons as to why my husband and I decided that resale made more sense for us and why we bought a resale flat anyway in the end. The biggest reason without a doubt was time. I didn't meet my husband when I was in secondary school, JC or university, so by the time we met, dated, got married, we were already at a stage where we wanted to start our lives together. Personally, I really didn't want to get married already then still have to wait another 3, 4, 5 years just to collect the keys to our home. When you think about it, that's actually a really long time. I don't want to wait a few years before I can finally move into my own place, renovate it to look like my dream home, start a family, etc. I don't want to wait till I'm close to 30 years old before I finally have a house that I actually own. If we had gone down the BTO route, realistically, we would have two options after getting married and waiting for the house to be ready. Either continue staying with our parents or rent a place while waiting. There's nothing wrong with either option, and I know many couples do exactly that, but personally, I didn't really want to inconvenience our parents after getting married, and I also wasn't very keen on renting because rent has to be paid in cash every month, and I'd rather save that money for my renovation or other things in life. Like the money you spend on renting, you will never get that money back. Unlike paying the monthly mortgage installments for a house you already own, you know that money goes towards your asset and you actually own something at the end of the day. So now because I bought a resale flat instead of renting first, I already own my home and my monthly mortgage is fully covered by my CPF money, so I'm not paying cash every month for housing. Another thing was that we could renovate immediately. We didn't have to spend years dreaming about our ideal minimalist home while waiting for the keys. We could just move into our own aesthetic home, start enjoying it. And this also tied into our family planning. We didn't want to feel like we had to put our lives on hold while waiting for a house. For us, buying a resale means we have the freedom to hold our wedding, start a family whenever we are ready, instead of planning everything around a key collection date a few years later. And it also means that when our child is born, they'll already have their own room and ample personal space. Compare that to staying with parents while waiting for a BTO, where it's quite common among people around me, where the husband moves in with the wife's family after marriage, if they choose to have kids. Is their parents' house big enough for the kid to have their own space, own room, own playing area? That's something that's important to me if I ever want kids, because I want to give them the best from the moment they are born, and that includes them having their own room, own playing area, no clutter, lots of personal space. Now, the next reason is that we could actually afford a resale flat. By the time we got married, both my husband and I had already been working for quite a number of years, so we built up quite a decent amount of CPF savings. I think sometimes people look at resale prices and immediately think, wow, that's so expensive when they compare it to the BTO prices, but I don't see it as an issue because my husband and I do have enough to afford a resale flat. I mean, not all resale flats are that expensive, you know. Not all resale flats are like those $1 million houses at places like Woodleigh or Pinnacle at Dawson. There's such a wide price range available out there in the market depending on the location, the size, the age of the house. So it's not that all resale flats are crazy expensive and unaffordable anyway. Fun fact, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but my husband and I didn't take a single cent from either of our parents to buy this home, be it the down payment, other fees, mortgage, and honestly, I'm quite proud of that. It feels very rewarding knowing that this home was something that we worked towards ourselves. And honestly, at times like this, right, I'm so thankful to be Singaporean and also thankful to be married to a Singaporean because both of us have CPF savings to help with the house purchase. Without CPF, I think buying a home would have required a lot more cash, which would have been much more stressful, not gonna lie. Another reason is the BTO income ceiling. I think people sometimes forget that BTO isn't an option forever because once your household income exceeds the income ceiling, you may no longer qualify to purchase one. So depending on where you are in your career or life, resale may naturally just become the more suitable option anyway. Another reason I really liked resale is that I could actually see exactly what I was buying before committing. I can go down to the block, view the unit, walk around the neighborhood, check if the unit is facing the bin center, listen to whether there's any noise that will bother me like the road or neighbors' pets, etc. And also observe what the neighbors are like. These are things you can't really know just from a floor plan or brochure that you refer to when you are selecting a BTO flat. For BTO, right, you're choosing based on drawings, artist impressions, because the estate hasn't even been built yet. For me, buying a home is one of the biggest financial decisions I'll ever make, so being able to experience the actual environment before buying gave me a lot more confidence personally. Also, you can choose where you want to stay if you buy resale. If you really want to be near certain stuff, like if you're that kind of parent, for example, who wants to stay within 1 km of an elite primary school, this is not like BTO, right? Where every year the BTO launches, they are limited to just a few particular areas that may not be that close to the specific schools that you want your child to get into. And by the way, if you are currently looking at resale flats, I've already made another video on what I think you can look out for when house hunting, so definitely go and check that out. Another thing I liked was that the estate was already fully developed, so I didn't have to wait for supermarkets to open, coffee shops to be built, bus services to be slowly introduced. For my place, I have buses nearby and I'm also within walking distance to a mall. So the moment I move in, everything is already there. I don't need to wait for things to be built, unlike in brand new BTO neighborhoods or estates. But at the same time, my flat is not old at all, so I kind of get the best of both worlds in a sense. I get a relatively new home, but in an estate where all the amenities are already established by the time I get my keys and move in. Another point that mattered to us was the size of the house. I've observed that quite a few of the newer BTO projects, especially those in the prime or plus locations, are actually a few square meters smaller than older resale flats. Now I know a few square meters doesn't sound like much, but once you start placing furniture, adding storage, and actually living in the space every day, right, I think those extra square meters really do make a difference in my opinion. So my husband and I simply prefer having a bit more room lah. My last reason is actually something people don't always think about, and that's the minimum occupation period, or in short MOP. For prime and plus BTOs, you're looking at 10 years MOP and then the rest are 5 years. Personally, that felt like a very long commitment, right? Be it 5 years or 10 years. Imagine moving in and then realizing the neighborhood isn't really for you, or maybe the amenities aren't as convenient as you expected, or you realize that your neighbors are just nightmares. So the thing is that with BTO, you won't know any of that beforehand because the estate doesn't exist yet. Whereas with resale, you can at least experience the environment by going down to view the house, and you can even do it a few times before making your decision. Now, of course, with that said, a resale flat is also not 100% perfect. There is definitely one major trade-off, and that's the potential windfall gains. We've all seen those stories of people who bought BTOs in places like Bidadari, Woodley, Bishan, and later sold them for really impressive profits. Just go and see the news and you'll see how people are selling off their BTOs at like super high prices compared to their original purchase price in some areas. Buying resale generally means that you don't get that same upside, and honestly, I knew that when we made our decision. But when I compare the potential profit against everything else we gained by buying resale, the time we saved, having our own home immediately at a young age instead of waiting till we hit close to 30, not needing to rent, not delaying our family plans, being able to choose the exact unit and neighborhood we wanted, I genuinely think it was the right decision for us. So that's why my husband and I chose a resale flat instead of a BTO. Again, I'm not saying that everyone should do the same because everyone's finances, priorities, and life circumstances are different. I mean, if your core priority is a profit, then go for it, right? You do you. But if your profits are moving in sooner, having more certainty, starting your life together immediately, being able to choose exactly where you want to live with the huge range of flats on sale all across Singapore, then resale is something that you could consider. I'd love to know what you guys think though. If you were buying your first home today, would you choose a BTO or a resale flat? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video. Bye!